guys, you are listening to the Be Bold, Be Birmingham podcast. We are here to dance to the beat of Brum's drum, to sing the soul of the city. Birmingham 2022 is just round the corner, and we're here to show you what a diverse and vibrant city Birmingham is. My name's Melzy J, and I am your host for Be Bold, Be Birmingham. And to the right of me, I have...
I'm Ben, I'm super excited about this one, Melzy. And we are here to talk about comedy today, and humour.
We most certainly are. So we've got two special guests in.
Oh, yeah?
Absolutely amazing. We've got Janice Connolly. She is a huge name in the UK comedy scene. She's the lady behind finalist Barbara Nice, and she's the founder of Women in Theatre. How are you, Janice?
I'm great. I love the way the fake news spreads. I didn't make the final, but that's all right. I didn't make the final Britain's Got Talent, but I love the way that fake news gets spread, and I'm taking that.
Yeah.
I'm a finalist.
You shouldn't point out that there was a mistake there.
Yeah,
it's lovely to be here. Absolutely brilliant to be here.
And we've, of course, got Tal Davis. She's an up-and-coming comedian and writer. She's literally killing the Birmingham comedian scene with all of her funny jokes. And she's also runner-up, and she is actually a finalist in the West Mids Comedy Awards. How are you, Tal?
Hi, I'm good. Thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
So happy to have you guys here.
Was there any fake news in that intro, or are we?
Just that I'm killing the scene. That's
You see, that's the first rule of comedy, honesty.
Now, Janice, you've been in the industry for so many years. Mm-hmm. Could you kind of describe what Birmingham was like creatively in the 70s and the 80s?
Well, I think it's always been a very, very, very interesting place. It always felt to me like there was a sort of a sieve effect in Birmingham, where after a while people go, we better go to London then. So I think that there's quite a lot of that going on in the 70s, where people were kicking off, really great places to go, but then eventually people would leave. And I'm really getting a feeling that these days people are sticking around, and I think that is the answer to it. There's no lack of talent, but we need to stick at it.
Why do you think they're starting to stay?
I don't know really, Ben, but I have definitely noticed that there is more of an infrastructure here. There's more confidence. I always feel the city's not had enough confidence in itself. And I don't think that's coming from the people themselves. I think sometimes there's a lack of leadership from the top. Things, we better buy it in. It can't be any good. It's from around here. Let's buy it in. But there has been a change of sort of saying we like what we can make ourselves. There was a point when, they buying the biggest revolving doors in Europe were bought, or, we brought in the Royal Ballet from London, rather than saying, what have we actually got here? And I'm really hoping with the Commonwealth Games and everything that's happening, we start to look at each other and go, you're great, let's stay here and make something brilliant together.
And I think you said something really interesting about, back in the 70s and 80s, that you had to kind of go out of London. We probably didn't have that infrastructure as much. And what we are finding is people are staying in Birmingham. Yeah. They're building their creativity right here. What do you think's changed the most?
Maybe just people realising that it isn't about going to London. It's about making something nice happening where you are. And I think one of the gifts of lockdown actually was people beginning to realise that local's really great. We don't want to be travelling all over the place all the time. Let's make what we want here together. I just think there's been quite a few things that have happened, I think, that have changed. And people are sticking, and I think that's great.
I remember talking to you in lockdown about going on walks and seeing things that you'd never normally see.
Yeah, that's
and I think you told me, I might have dreamt this up, but I'm sure you told me that you saw someone had fed the ducks with a naan bread or something.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
No, it's funny what stays in your mind.
It is, yeah. Great. And of course, as the naan bread swelled in the water, if swelled is indeed a word, and it got bigger and bigger and bigger, so they were like sort of flying saucers. It was in Swansea's Park Pool, actually. But yeah, sort of recognising the small things in life and finding out all the green spaces in Birmingham are absolutely fantastic. And I do think that was a sort of a gift of lockdown, yeah.
Now, you're also a musician as well. You've been in the music industry.
Well, I can play a tambourine, I've got to be honest. I love the way I've been picked up. I'm not a musician. I can play a tambourine, and I love being involved with bands. Yeah, I've been involved with loads of bands. Yeah, I played with Ben actually.
You played drums with me.
Yeah, I played drums. And I repeat, I am not a musician, so you can imagine what I was doing.
I'm more of like a backup singer.
Yeah.
Or I can do like backup dancing. Like,
Yeah.
I think I'd be really good at like backup dancing for like Adele or something. You know?
Yeah.
Going back to the bands thing, and because like when you were sort of, what was it sort of uni in Birmingham College sort of time? Because you had the Jeremy Thorpe song, right?
Yeah, we released a single, Jeremy Thorpe's Innocent, which has just been re-released actually.
Oh,
yeah.
Wow.
So we were playing, there were loads of venues at the time. We played with ub40. Unfortunately, we've just lost Brian Travers. He's a great loss. So we were playing with bands like ub40, The Beat. There were loads of bands kicking around Moseley, playing upstairs in the Hare and Hounds. And the Fighting Cocks in Moseley was another great place. So there was loads of that kind of stuff going on.
We had Adam from the Hare and Hounds the other week.
Yeah, brilliant. So I think the Hare and Hounds is a big player in all this, actually. It's about leadership and vision, isn't it? So, yeah, I was in bands, absolutely loved it, never made a penny, but it was all right.
Yeah.
Yeah, good times.
Was that was there the crossover from playing in bands and sort of being in that scene to getting involved in comedy? Was that one and the same, or was that a decision?
It was sort of a feeling of wanting, because comedy was, you know, the big phrase was, it's the new rock and roll. So I'd done rock and roll, so now I want to do the new rock and roll. So having done the kind of punk bands and stuff like that, then I did acting for a bit, did pub theatre, and then I wanted to get involved with comedy because it was very, very creative, and I'm not sure these days, I'd be interested to know what Tal thinks about this, if comedy is quite as creative as it used to be. I think alternative comedy was a very exciting thing. I was talking to somebody the other day who talked about a guy whose act was he would come on as a block of ice and kind of chip away at himself, and that was his act. Now, I don't think we're going to see the like of that again.
Was that that was a comedy?
That was his act, yeah. And there was another guy called, I'm trying to think what his first name is. I think it's Phil Lynott. But his act was, he actually put a firework up his bum and lit it. That was his act.
I mean, that's funny.
Of course it is, but I don't think you can see that on Live at the Apollo. Because it's all become quite kind of wordy.
Yeah.
And everybody kind of looks the same, I think, and sort of sounds the same. And the comedy characters, and I don't mean a character like I do, be somebody else, but that kind of real one-offness, I'm not sure that exists.
Risk taker in that.
Yeah, I don't think it exists so much. But I was very attracted to that. Yeah, let's get on there and do something odd. Let's get dressed up as a duvet and go on stage and see what happens.
Yeah.
I like all that stuff.
I think comedy's quite a hard industry to kind of get into and actually do.
It's not, you know, because it's one of the most open industries. I'm sure Tal took. If you wanted to do it, you can get yourself on an open mic spot. You can get and do it. If you're really good, somebody will book you. It's completely within your power. And I think it's really fantastic sort of punk DIY-ness. And if anybody's listening to this or watching it, think, I want to go out and do it. Nobody can stop you doing it. And if you're good, the audience let you know, and it's a level playing ground. I'm a big fan of comedy for that. It isn't hard to get into, actually.
You don't think it is?
No, you've just got to do it.
Yes and no. I mean, I did a comedy course because unlike most creatives, I actually quite like some structure as well. Like, so I did a comedy course that quite a lot of people do in Birmingham. Am I allowed to say the name?
Yeah.
I did James Cook's comedy course, which is quite...
Mac? Was that?
It was at the Hare and Hounds, actually, my first gig after that. So I sort of got into it through that. You know, you do a showcase and then you get a few pointers of who to go to. But yeah, once you kind of do that first few open mics, especially in a circuit like Birmingham's, which is a little bit smaller and more tightly knit, you know, everyone's really welcoming. And like Janice says, you know, there is that real freedom. And just touching on what you were saying about the kind of creativity and being a bit sort of out there, I think at grassroots level, you do still see that occasionally, like at the famous Hollybush.
Oh, right. Well, that's a brilliant local jewel, isn't it?
Yeah, which is just where most people in Birmingham do their first gig. It's a real rite of passage place for any. I mean, literally anyone who wants to have a go goes to the Hollybush.
Wow.
I've seen people like use their whole 10 minutes picking up ice cubes with a litter picker and putting it into another bin while reading out a list of Titanic victims. like just the maddest stuff. But I think possibly when it comes to actually progressing, I think the further higher up you go, obviously the more possibly you can't really break the mould as much.
Oh, I think it's probably more difficult, to sort of get on telly and stuff like that.
And I suppose
but to actually perform is free and easy.
Yeah,
really.
the easiest
You've got
part.
like a 5-minute spot. The ice cube thing's good, but that after 20 minutes is going to get. I don't know.
The ice is going to melt.
He reckoned he was taking it to Edinburgh and doing it for an hour to see how long people would sit there, but I don't know.
That's kind of like getting on like performance art side, isn't
yes,
it?
it's
It's
Yeah,
like
it's more performative.
yeah.
Kind of like, what inspired you then, Tal, to kind of get into, comedy? Was you just always a natural funny person? Was you the person around the family dinners telling jokes? Like, what inspired you?
Yeah, I think definitely. I think it's a little bit of a cliche, but I think most comedians are a little bit sort of damaged in some way, and they always want to be the class clown and can't bear to have someone else hogging the attention in a conversation. That was definitely me. I wanted to do it for a solid 10 years before I actually grew a pair and decided to do it. For me, I kind of naively thought that the biggest hurdle would be being brave enough to do it, and obviously after that, success would just follow. And obviously there's a lot more hard work once you do that first one.
It's scary when you did that first one.
Oh yeah, I get quite nervous still. I think people tend to fall into one of two camps where they were never that nervous, or I've heard of TV names who've been going 20 years who still get as nervous as I do before a gig. I think it just depends how you're wired. I'm not sure if you would agree, Jan.
I get nervous, yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
That surprises me,
Absolutely.
that.
Oh no, I do. It's fine when you're on stage. It's waiting to get on stage. It's unbearable, actually.
I think for maybe any performer, like even me, just before like I'm presenting or especially going on stage in front of people, you get that, you get really nervous, you get a little bit tense, but then those 5 seconds of being on stage and kind of receiving that energy from the crowd, it gets that adrenaline going, and then you kind of start flying then and you're good to go.
Yeah, you're fine then. It's just beforehand, really. And I think probably your body and your mind's going, don't do this. Why are you doing it? Why are you
The
doing
internal
this?
radio.
Yeah, I
the
think a
guy
little
up there.
bit. It's sort of going, come on, you don't have to do this.
Yeah.
That's so true. It's the same monologue. I skydived once, and it was the exact same feeling
Yeah,
of
I
like
think it
literally
is.
why you do.
Because you are putting yourself through something pretty major, I think, and your body doesn't really want you to do it.
Yeah. So would you say like, because I love comedy and I love comedians, and I've always wanted to know, like, obviously you have to prepare some of the content that you create, but is there any of it improvisation? Do you ever improvise on the spot?
Yeah, but you've got to know what you're doing. I remember comparing for some guy to some open mic spot. I said, you know what you're doing? He said, no, it'll come to me on stage. I went, it won't, love. You've got to know what you're doing, but be open enough to go with things that are happening. And for me, that's when I'm happiest on stage, when something's happening and you're responding to it, and we're all living in that moment, and that's proper live comedy, I think.
That's
sort of unrepeatable, really.
I've seen you doing that, and that ties into what I was about to say, this thing about there's a difference between the person who's really funny at the pub and a stand-up comedian, because there's so much structure going on, there's so much theory going on, usually. Not all the time maybe, but with most stand-up comedians, there's a huge amount of structure, and like meticulously going through the same things over and over and over again, and working it, changing it, tweaking it. But then I remember seeing your act, Janice, at the Mac. Do you remember? We did two. We did, I think it was a Friday and a Saturday together, and I was playing with my band, and I remember watching. I remember trying to do the same thing. I've never done back-to-back gigs like that, so I remember trying to do the same thing on the Friday to the Saturday. But actually, a Friday crowd's very different from a Saturday crowd. And I remember talking to you about it, but more importantly, watching you do the same gig, but changing it and making it fit a different crowd, which for me was fascinating to watch.
I definitely am aware of doing that, and I like to look at the crowd beforehand and work out things, because I kind of play a confidence trick on the crowd, because I get them to do things like a stage dive and all sorts of stuff. So for me, I've got to prepare the ground, because I know in a minute I'm going to get them all standing up trying to be, you know, in a curling final at the Olympic Games and things like that. So it's a sort of a psychological game I'm playing, which might be different. I think it's probably different from what you're doing.
Yeah, I've never crowd surfed.
Can we just talk about this crowd surfing? Because I actually witnessed this the other day, and I was just kind of like, that is just so cool and outrageous how you just called up all of these young chaps and you just dived.
Again, that's a complete TV lie, because you had to rehearse it for health and safety.
But I've seen you do that.
I do it in real life. Because I kept saying, I don't need to. They're going, oh, they won't know what to say. I said, listen, I can get them to it really, really quickly. But television's so unspontaneous, actually. And I like live comedy better, because you're just doing your own thing. But yeah, you can get loads of people very quickly to come and catch you and look after you, but never do it again, because the second time I think they'll try and mess you around. Okay. But the first time they're so surprised, they really genuinely help you.
And what's the difference between Janice and Barbara?
I'd never stage dive.
How do you separate kind of like the personalities and get into your zone when you are on stage?
With a red wig.
I've seen you do it, but like it changes like that.
Yeah,
okay.
Just a bit more confident, and I certainly wouldn't stage dive.
Do you find it difficult to kind of get into Barbara's zone sometimes?
No, I'm grateful for it, actually, because she would do it. I'm grateful for her.
Can we talk a little bit about the difference between different crowds and different nights? I find that fascinating. I don't know whether you found that as well. Whether a Friday night is different from a Tuesday or a Saturday.
Oh yeah, complete. I mean, I think it definitely sort of comes with experience. So I'm not sure. I'm sure you'd agree, Janice. Like being able to kind of read a room, or even just to have the kind of things in your arsenal to be like, actually, they're not going to respond well to that. Luckily, I've got all this other material or this other kind of thing I can do. Obviously, that doesn't come straight away.
Yeah,
you kind of have to learn the hard way with that. Yeah. And like I think certainly for a lot of like newer comics, me definitely, like it was quite a barrier of like going off script at first, because you like as we've already said, it's so nerve-wracking enough going on with your rehearsed stuff, let alone going off piece. But once you actually do that, like you've said, really that's really where the magic happens, and that sometimes you can get material that you will then keep using just from an off-the-cuff joke with an audience member.
And what about, so the difference between different nights of the week, but what about, and this gets into sort of like what makes Birmingham sort of Brummie humour and stuff like that. What's a Brum crowd like, and how is that different from other cities?
I think that's, I can't really answer that, because I sort of,
you're playing at home when
it's a home gig, isn't it? So they're behind you know them. It's relaxing, it's fun, it's loving, I would say.
What about yourself, Tal?
I would agree, even like, you know, not being like a sort of more recognisable name, just literally when they hear that you've got a bit of a Brummie accent, they're going to warm to you a bit more. It's just the nature of it. I've been to gigs elsewhere, and it's the same's happened for a local person. I do think they're generally warmer anyway. I think I don't know, you don't really get as many hecklers. I think it's hard to heckle with a Brummie accent. Do you know what I mean? It's hard to sound like a sort of Jack the Lad, like, oh no. So I don't know, they tend to be a bit better behaved, but then I think there's a huge difference with like a weekday gig and a weekend gig.
Right. I guess you get the stag do's and the hen do's at the weekend things, and the
and you kind of like, you have to really want to be there to be at like an open mic on a Tuesday, I feel like, or like a smaller gig.
I'm with you. They have to really like comedy.
Yeah, exactly. Whereas sometimes if it's a Friday night, it's for the fans. Exactly, this one's for the fans. Yeah. But yeah, no, on like a Friday night, you know, there's possibly one person who really likes comedy, and then 5 of their mates who are just there to get drunk, and that, you know, obviously you just have to be a little bit.
Yeah.
You have to have a few more off-the-cuff bits in your back pocket for a weekend.
But I think that kind of proper dry Birmingham comedy of the streets is a delightful thing, really. That's understated stuff. is really special and great.
Like downplaying things, understated,
Yeah, it's really lovely.
A few people we've had on have talked about that Brummie kind of like, and poking fun at each other as well, not being, chest out, but sort of
That's
a bit
right.
having a laugh at yourself kind of thing.
And we have a lot of bants. Like Birmingham people have banter for days. You can literally speak to anybody and have a laugh or have a joke, and it's just quite warm and friendly.
Definitely, and quite sort of self-deprecating. I think like we've been the butt of the joke for quite a long time, but we kind of like I've literally heard people say, "Oh God, you've got to try this place. It's rubbish. It's great." Like as if that's in the same sense. Like you just, I don't know. Like there's a real kind of embracing it, and like Although actually that maybe that's going to fade a bit because Birmingham has completely changed in my lifetime. Birmingham's not really rubbish anymore, is it?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Janice?
It's not rubbish anymore.
No, what are we going to do?
What are we doing now? People are looking at us.
We might have to have some pride. I don't know. What we're going to do.
And for you, Janice, like how did you make that? How did you get on to the TV with Barbara Nice? Like how did that all start?
It's just luck, really. A lot of it. It's luck and very, 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 very hard work. So nothing's going to change if you're not doing what you're doing.
Okay.
So you just have to keep doing it, and then at some point somebody will say, come and do it here. Really.
I suppose there's two things going on there. There's you're doing it every night. You're doing it in wherever you can, which means more people are going to see you. But also you're refining your act. You're developing the act, right?
Yeah, you've got to keep it. And it was actually to do with Peter Kay seeing me in a comedy competition in Manchester, because I'm from Stockport originally. I've lived in Birmingham all my adult life, so about I won't tell you, a long time, but a long
so
time.
that was a big moment. Did you know he was there? Did you know it was?
Well, he'd won the competition the year before, and he came along to watch it, and then he rang me up next day and said, "I'm making a television program. Will you be in it?" And then from then I got into Phoenix Nights after being in a couple of other things with him. But it was one of those moments, when someone's in the audience, it's like a sort of one of those. Mm-hmm. And those things do happen, but you've got to be doing it in the first place for it to happen.
So kind of the key is to just kind of continue to do what you need to do creatively, and then those opportunities kind of fall in place.
Yeah.
What would you say is, what's the next thing for Barbara? I mean, Britain's Got Talent is a huge achievement. I watched your performance. It was absolutely hilarious. I like your little recorder handbag.
Oh, it's good,
I
isn't
want
it?
one.
Well, it's from King's Heath, but the shop shut down, I'm sorry to tell you. What's next for Barbara? I don't know, really. I mean, I do acting as well, so I'm in Doctors at the moment, so I'm really enjoying that, I've got to say. I've been I played a receptionist, Rosie Colton. So I'm really properly loving that, because that's obviously made in Birmingham.
Yeah.
And I really have had enough of travelling around. I don't know how much travelling Tal's doing at the moment, but that is the killer. People go, "Oh, what's it like to be heckled?" It's not that. It's what's it like trying to get home from Preston, 10:30 on a Saturday night. That's the real problem.
Are you doing that like hardcore gigging at the moment, Tal?
Yeah, I'm kind of in the thick of what I'm sure you'll remember is the grind of travelling and
just trying to do as much as possible.
Yeah, that's the thing, because it's kind of like what you were saying. I mean, half the battle is kind of just showing up, and like, because that opportunity may come at any time. So you just gotta.
Is it an addiction? Do you think the adrenaline of going on stage and is it?
Yeah, I think so. I think there's. I mean, I'd be lying if I said there wasn't ups and downs. I think people think you have to be thick-skinned in the sense of like, in case someone's mean to you when you're on stage, but actually you have to be thick-skinned throughout, because you make really close friends with people that you're often in direct competition with, and so there's that element. What my trick is to just try and book in so much that if you ever have a random day of not wanting to do it, it's too much admin. So and then the addictive feeling comes back a day later anyway.
If you was to kind of like advise someone to get into comedy, kind of like what advice would you give them?
I think it's good to do what Tal's done and go on a comedy course, because it's sort of speeds up the learning that you do on the road, really. So every gig you learn something from. But what a comedy course does is it gives you a sort of a fast track into doing all that stuff. And you're going to perform in the showcase it makes you do that thing, which is to get on stage and do something and create something. So I think doing a comedy course is really good, but you've got to do it. It's just one of those, really.
That was the big thing for me, really, for the comedy course, was just knowing that it was like a deadline almost. You know, there was a show at the end that I had to do, you know, so I think that was a good push.
I've been told I'm funny before. I don't know whether that's true or not. And people have actually said, you should go into comedy, How would I write my first joke? What does that look like for you?
What does it look like for you, actually?
Okay.
It's a very personal thing.
Get yourself in a block of ice.
Yeah. It's about, what does it look like? As I was saying, for Tal, I'm sure that was, you try to get personal, don't you? You've got to find something that just works for you, so that these generic jokes and things that everybody, you know, in the 70s, people were telling jokes that were written by other people. One of the things about alternative comedy was it was sort of saying, be you, find the material for you, although there are still lots of generic things going around. But it's actually finding something about what is it that you care
Find funny
about.
Talking about.
Yeah, what do you want to, I mean, yeah, what kind of stuff would you want to be talking about, do you think, Melzy?
Probably being single, because it's been way too long, so that could be quite funny.
Yeah.
Dating, maybe.
Yeah.
You know, being an auntie and not having kids and what that looks like.
Yeah.
Going to weddings and being the third wheel and not having a +1.
Yeah.
Can we make that make sense?
Yeah, because a load of people identify with it. Because actually, in the thing that we find very personal, is this loads of people going, and me.
Okay.
So the very small becomes very big, I think.
So kind of like through telling your own kind of jokes, you then kind of create your own audience that follows you for that relatability, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
But I kind of feel like Barbara Nice related to lots of people.
I do try and relate to lots of people.
I don't think you've got a specific niche that would follow
No,
Barbara Nice.
I'm hoping that I've got a really wide age range and backgrounds and cultures. And I was talking to Tal before, and as Barbara, I don't swear in my own life, but I don't swear on stage because I think it alienates people, and I want as many people as possible to find it funny. So I'm very interested in this broad church of comedy.
Do you swear on stage? If
Yeah,
so,
Tal.
why?
Do you swear on
Because I
stage?
scum. That's why. No, I do swear a bit. I don't kind of make swearing the punchline, but kind of one of the best pieces of advice I was given is to just like try and tell the story or try and tap into your humour, like when you're talking with your mates, because mine's very storytelling. It's like sort of like what you were saying, Melzy, like you know, relatable stuff. And I kind of write down my ideas verbatim as if I was just like sending a rant text to my friend, or like, oh my god, this happened. So then I do swear a bit, basically.
But that's good because that's natural.
Because it's natural,
Right,
and
right.
like with that whole being relatable, that one of the best feelings in the world, other than like a laugh and a applause, is when you see them kind of turn to each other, like pointing at each other, like that's you, that is, you know,
Yeah,
like
that's
when
brilliant.
they're really connected with it.
Yeah, I'm not anti-swearing. I think what you describe is absolutely brilliant. It's the authenticity of
Of that
swearing, but not
individual.
just for the
It
sake
would be
of
strange to see Barbara swearing. I
She
think.
does swear sometimes. Barbara not so nice.
Or
Does
like
come out.
sugar, or like a sugar roll.
Well, she says swining and pigging.
She says pigging a
She
lot.
says pigging a lot, yeah.
Yeah.
But I saw Rosie Jones the other day, and she's and she swears a hell of a lot on stage, and it's absolutely fantastic.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's about whether it suits you, but not doing it for the sake
Too
of
much.
it.
Yeah.
But just not do it for the sake
Yeah.
of
It
it. I
needs
think
to add
isn't-
something,
yeah.
doesn't it? It needs to be.
Yeah.
So Janice, can you talk to me a little bit about women in theatre? I
Okay.
absolutely love everything that, you know, you guys do with women, seeing different women from different cultures. Tell us a little bit about how that started for you.
Well, it's been going about 40 years, something like that. And I'm the artistic director of it now, and I'm a founder member. And it was really to do... Originally, it was to get work for us as actresses in Birmingham. Again, making your own work, I think, is the way forward, really. And that's what's so good about comedy. And then it's grown and grown into something that is always researched with Birmingham communities, not entirely women, but always with a sort of a female point of view behind it. And we're just making something now about women in cricket, which we're researching in Ward End, in Edgbaston, and I'm trying to think of the other place. Yes, Smethwick. And we're going to get ordinary women performing, playing a game of cricket, but you're going to hear monologues from them as fielders about cricket matches they remember as being kids, what they feel about cricket generally, lots of different things like that. So we've made, I don't know how many pieces of theatre, tons and tons and tons. We've done stuff at the Birmingham Rep. We did a show about hoarding, which sold out before we'd even, put it up for sale properly, because people were so interested in the subject matter. So I hope that we make theatre based in Birmingham about things that really matter to people living in Birmingham.
We actually saw one of your pieces on YouTube regarding lockdown, and I saw everybody was kind of on camera.
Oh, yeah, brilliant.
And it really touched me, actually, just to hear, like, what women were going through. Like, I lost my friend yesterday. I've not been able to eat. I'm saying I'm all right, but I'm not actually all right.
We had a lovely song. I'm all right.
Yeah.
I'm not all right.
It was such an inspiring piece and really, really interesting to watch, especially after lockdown.
Yeah, we made that on Zoom, actually.
Yeah.
So with lots of women, I think about 50 women, and also we work with women from the deaf community as well. And we made this film, Women in Lockdown. And it's a wonderful piece of film, actually. And it really captures that particular time. Because home is not a safe place for everybody, you know.
And I think now we're kind of out of lockdown, watching that, it kind of brings you back. Oh my gosh, we were actually in a lockdown. Sometimes you kind of go back to normal so quickly, you forget all of the things that we did experience and go through. So it was so nice to see women from different backgrounds, different cultures, talking about things that they've been through. That must have been quite emotional for them as well.
Yes, it was. Yeah, and it was also a really good way of getting people together. Because Zoom was an interesting thing for creatives. I don't know whether you did any Zoom comedy on Zoom, did you?
I only did a couple. I wasn't a fan. I'm not sure how you felt.
I really liked it because I like playing with people. Because if people are at home and I can say, right, go and get something and get dressed up as Marge Simpson now. And then people would go around their houses and put blue cushions on their heads and stuff like that. So I really liked all that stuff. But I know for more straight stand-up, without being able to hear an audience laugh, that was hard for people. Did you find that?
Yeah, and my Wi-Fi connection wasn't great, so I would hear silence, panic, start telling my next joke, and then get the laughter 5 minutes later.
Oh, well, that delays.
My experience might not be that universal in comedy.
I think a lot of stand-up comedians didn't like it, actually, because they wanted to get the immediate feel of the laughter. And like you say, the timing is delayed on Zoom, and comedy is all about timing.
So we have the Commonwealth Games coming in 2022. They're coming to Birmingham, which is so exciting and amazing for the city. How do you guys feel about the Commonwealth coming to Birmingham, Jan?
Well, it's already here, isn't it? You know, we are part of the Commonwealth anyway. So, but it's great to have all those fantastic sports people come in and visitors and stuff like that. And yeah, will the tram be ready in time?
Fingers crossed.
Right.
But we've got the scooters just in case they're not.
Scooter racing.
We'll be all right on the scooters. It's great. It's happening, isn't it? It's brilliant.
Are you into sports?
I like swimming.
Breaststroke or long stroke?
Breaststroke.
Is it stage diving or real diving?
It'd be good to get Barbara doing it. I'd love to be part of the opening ceremony. Who'd you talk to?
I'll sort you out, Janice. Don't worry. I'll hook you up.
Come on. We'll do a massive stage dive.
It would be good.
It would be good.
Perfect for you.
Yeah. If anybody's listening.
What do you think about the Commonwealth coming to Birmingham?
I think it's great to have that kind of level of investment, not just financially, but just like emotional investment in the city. And like, there's so much happening, so much going on. And again, it's sort of like, it becomes a deadline in a way, doesn't it? And everyone's sort of raising their game for it. And it's really nice to see.
That's absolutely brilliant. It's got a gig. The city's got a gig. And it's going to pull it off. Yeah, brilliant.
That's lovely. That's great.
And you mentioned about a deadline. It's true. It's kind of like everyone are getting their ducks in place and getting their creative stuff out, especially being, in lockdown. We're kind of getting back into the swing of things now. So I definitely feel like it's going to be great for creatives, for anybody that's kind of in Birmingham, just to see the vibrancy, just seeing the Be Bold, Be Birmingham around Birmingham just makes me smile. Do you know what I mean? And kind of being part of that. If you could play or be involved in the Commonwealth Game, what sport or activity would you be comfortable with, Tal?
Yes.
Oh God, I don't really exude sporty, do I? But not to copy Janice's answer, but actually swimming is the only thing that I'm all right at. I'd probably do swimming. No.
We should sort of race out between you two.
Oh,
I think that'll be good. What do you think makes Birmingham, Tal?
Oh goodness. I think the warmth and the humour. I think the diversity, like truly, not just diversity in a sense of like old people from different cultures, but they're truly like intermingled. I lived in London for quite a while, and people are sort of like a little bit more like, this is
pockets of different.
This is my sort of tribe. These are my ends. Not that I can get. I'm so not cool enough for that.
No, that's cool.
Whereas Birmingham, it's just like, well, the naan bread floating down the river, feeding the ducks is a perfect analogy.
Of Birmingham.
Yeah, well, I think so.
Perfect analogy of Birmingham.
It actually is.
Is a naan bread floating down. Yeah, that's great.
I'd agree with Tal. It's the kind of diversity in the integration. And also, I think you can be yourself in Birmingham. I think there's many places, you just can do your own thing.
Yeah.
There isn't just one way of being. And I think that's very healthy and good.
And what makes Birmingham bold for you? You've travelled a lot, you've been to a lot of places. What makes Birmingham bold? Because you're still here, Janice. You could have gone anywhere.
I could have done. Actually, this may not be what you wanted me to hear, but me to say, but I quite like its lack of boldness sometimes.
Okay.
Because people. It isn't all about go get. It's all about thinking about things. It's got a history of nonconformism, of, great altruism, looking after communities, the Quaker history. It's thoughtful. And I'm very sorry if that's something that we're going for, bold.
That's great.
I think bold with some backbone behind it. Bold because it's got something new to say, something fresh to say, not bold for boldness' sake.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's
got
to have substance
not wearing
to
a
it.
big badge.
We're here, come on, what's going on, followers? Hey, we're loud. It's not that. Where we go, we don't know, but we really go in there.
Yeah.
So it's sort of really being thoughtful, actually.
Yeah.
I'm being confident. I say be confident.
Yeah.
Because it's a great place to live. And as you say, it's kept me here a very long time. And but that's because it's nuanced, it's interesting, it's kind. There is everything that you want. But we mustn't become trying to be something else. It has to hang on to what it's good at, really, which is being welcoming and moving over and say, there's room for everybody, come on.
Yeah. Definitely.
It's all that, really.
It's been such a pleasure interviewing you, Tal and Janice. It's been absolutely amazing. I'm definitely going to be attending one of your comedy shows soon. Ben, you're going to take me?
Yeah, let's go. Yeah.
I would absolutely love that. Please stay tuned to Be Bold, Be Birmingham. You can get access to the episodes on the Birmingham City Council YouTube and Instagram. Make sure you tell everyone because Birmingham 2022 is just around the corner. See you later.
Nice one.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Bye.
Awesome.